So imagine you just finished saving an entire galaxy from basically a megalomaniacal scientist.
Right, just a casual Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. You've survived these exploding suns, you've navigated all these literal biological horrors, and you flew headfirst into a massive armada.
And you won. The dust settles. They throw a massive parade for you.
Right, the parade is thrown. And then you turn around and hand the government a bill for nearly $400,000.
Because at the end of the day, you still have to make rent on your giant spaceship.
Exactly. I mean, the economy comes for us all, even in space. So, welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
We are super excited to get into this one.
We really are. Today, we are strapping in to explore the working-class mercenaries of the 1997 Nintendo 64 Classic.
The one that basically rewired how we all interact with video games.
It really did. And we're going to cover everything for you. We'll start with the game's wild development history, including how it cannibalized a dead project.
Oh yeah, the cutting room floor on this one is just fascinating.
And then we are going to cover the entire Lylat War, planet by planet, route by route, right up to the doorstep of the galaxy's greatest tyrant.
It's a fascinating contradiction, honestly. I mean, we're talking about a game that defined the modern cinematic space shooter.
Right.
And it introduced physical force feedback to the world. Yet its protagonists are like these heavily armed anthropomorphic freelancers who are just drowning in debt.
It's so funny when you put it like that, but the timing for you and I to look back at this could not be better, right?
Oh, absolutely. With that highly anticipated HD remake dropping on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, slated for June 25, 2026. So we have the perfect excuse to examine the DNA of this masterpiece before an entirely new generation jumps into the cockpit.
Which means we kind of have to start with a bit of a hardware autopsy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Hardware autopsy.
Yeah, because to understand the massive leap forward this 1997 release represented, you really have to look at the bloodbath of the 16-bit to 32-bit console transition.
Wait, okay, so you're telling me this genre-defining, fully 3D 64-bit game was mostly recycled code from a dead Super Nintendo game?
Pretty much, yeah.
How does a 16-bit engine even translate to a 64-bit world? I mean, that sounds like a complete development nightmare.
Oh, it was an incredibly complex pivot. So the original game in the series came out in 1993 on the Super Nintendo.
Right, the one with the polygons.
Exactly. And it was revolutionary because it used the Super FX chip. Now, to give you some context, the Super FX chip was essentially a custom RISC math coprocessor.
Meaning it did the heavy lifting for the 3D graphics.
Yeah, it was literally built into the physical game cartridge itself. The Super Nintendo's own internal processor just wasn't powerful enough to render 3D polygons in real time.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they put the processor in the cartridge.
They had to. So they put a secondary brain inside the cartridge to handle the intense mathematics required to draw 3D space.
That's wild. So they obviously planned a sequel for that?
Naturally, a sequel was planned and fully developed using an upgraded version of this chip for the SNES. But right as it was nearing completion, the gaming landscape just shifted violently.
Because Sony drops the PlayStation and Sega drops the Saturn.
Exactly right. The 32-bit era arrived practically overnight. Competitors were releasing consoles that made the 16-bit SNES look instantly archaic.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really compete with the PlayStation using a Super Nintendo cartridge, even a smart one.
Right. Releasing a 16-bit 3D game, even a highly advanced one, in that environment would have rendered it commercially obsolete on arrival. So they made the agonizing decision to cancel it.
They just canceled the physical release of that SNES sequel entirely.
Entirely.
Man, that has to be soul-crushing for the team. I mean, you build an entire game, test it, polish it.
And then the corporate hammer just comes down.
Yeah, and shelves it because the silicone moving the industry forward is just moving too fast.
Soul-crushing, yes, but it proved to be an incredibly fruitful incubation period. Because those ideas from the canceled sequel didn't just vanish into the ether.
They saved them.
They were directly transplanted into the 1997 N64 title. The developers estimated that roughly 60% of the gameplay in the N64 version came directly from that canceled sequel.
Wait, really? 60%?
Yeah, only 30% was from the original 1993 game, and a mere 10% was completely original work.
Okay, I have to push back a little here. How do you take 60% of a 16-bit game and just transplant it onto the N64?
It's a fair question.
Because you can't just copy and paste the code, right? The
Yeah.
architecture is completely different.
You're entirely right. You don't port the code, you port the design math and the mechanics.
Oh, I see.
The most significant addition that carried over was all-range mode. In the 1993 original, you were essentially on a roller coaster track.
Like an interactive tunnel.
Exactly. The game only scrolled forward. You could steer up, down, left, and right within a confined square on the screen, but you were always moving relentlessly down a set corridor.
Right, you couldn't turn around.
But the canceled sequel introduced the mathematical logic to detach the cart from the track. It introduced the ability to fly freely in a 360-degree arena.
Which is huge.
Massive. They took that conceptual blueprint, the trigonometry of tracking targets in an open XYZ coordinate space, and rebuilt it for the N64.
So suddenly you aren't just shooting what's in front of you.
Right, you have to worry about threats from behind, above, and below. It was like taking the training wheels off the spaceship.
That must have completely changed the pacing.
It did. They also brought over the concept of charged laser shots, and crucially, the introduction of the rival mercenary squad, Starwolf.
Okay, so they basically used the SNES sequel as a massively expensive whiteboard to figure out the game design.
That's a great way to put it.
And then they used the N64 hardware to actually paint the picture. And speaking of hardware, we cannot talk about this game without talking about the Rumble Pack.
Oh, the Rumble Pack. Absolutely iconic.
Because think about how you hold a controller today. You expect it to vibrate. When you play a modern shooter, a subtle vibration lets you know your magazine is empty.
Or when you take damage, the whole controller shakes. You take that entirely for granted now.
Exactly. But put yourself back in that living room in 1997. This game was bundled with the Rumble Pack.
This heavy, battery-powered peripheral that you clicked into the expansion port.
Right on the back of the weird three-pronged N64 controller.
It was the first video game to support physical force feedback. And the psychology behind how that changes the player experience is profound.
How so? I mean, how does a little motor spinning an off-center weight actually change how your brain processes the game?
Well, it closes the sensory loop. When you only have visual and audio feedback, you are just an observer interacting with a screen.
Okay.
But when your ship takes a hit on screen and your actual physical hands are violently jolted a fraction of a second later, your central nervous system registers it as a tangible consequence.
So your body actually reacts to it.
Yeah, it triggers a microstress response. It induces a subconscious tension that drastically heightens your immersion.
Oh, wow. So when you hit the boost on the R-wing and it rumbles.
The controller rumbled in a steady, heavy rhythm, mimicking engine thrust. It tricked your brain into feeling the acceleration.
That is brilliant.
It bridged the gap between the screen and the player in a way that had never been successfully mass-marketed before.
It really was an incredible tactile revolution. And the immersion wasn't just physical, right? It was auditory, too.
Oh, the audio is legendary.
This game utilized over 700 voice samples, which, okay, modern games have thousands of hours of dialogue.
Sure, they do.
But this was on a 96 megabit cartridge. Let's contextualize that for you listening at home. 96 megabits is exactly 12 megabytes.
12 megabytes, that is nothing.
The entire game, the 3D models, the textures, the physics engine, the code, the music, and 700 lines of spoken dialogue is the exact same file size as a single uncompressed photograph sitting on your smartphone right now.
It's honestly a miracle of data compression. To fit that much audio, they had to use extreme compression algorithms and pitch modulation.
And it still sounded great.
Yeah, the result was a constant, ongoing stream of radio chatter. Your wingmen were asking for help, bosses were taunting you, your commanding officer was updating mission parameters.
It just brought the entire Lylat system to life.
Completely. And we have to acknowledge the absolute legendary status of those voice actors, the varied accents, the sheer frantic emotion they conveyed through highly compressed audio files.
We really do. Rick May, who provided the voices for both the wise mentor Peppy Hare and the villainous Andros.
He sadly passed away in 2020 at the age of 79.
Yeah. And Jock Blaney, who was the iconic voice of the rival Wolf O'Donnell, the ally Bill Gray, and the boss Granga. He actually just passed away recently in March 2026.
Their vocal performances cannot be overstated in their importance to the medium. By giving these low-polygon animal characters distinct, highly emotive voices, they transformed a simple arcade shooter into a living, breathing, cinematic experience.
It felt like a movie.
It did. The game seamlessly transitioned from 3D action gameplay into real-time, in-engine cutscenes without skipping a beat or fading to a loading screen.
That is so true.
For 1997, that bridging of cinema and gaming was profoundly ahead of its time.
It really was. Like, when I first played the Katina level, it felt so incredibly familiar.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The massive flying saucer eclipsing the sun, the chaotic dogfight swirling around a ground base. It felt like I was playing a summer blockbuster. It felt exactly like Independence Day.
You have a very good eye, because you absolutely were. The development team designed the game as a love letter to sci-fi cinema.
Really. So Katina was intentional.
Katina is a direct mechanical homage to Independence Day. And doesn't stop there. Sector Y features mechs launching out of battleships.
Oh, like Mobile Suit Gundam.
Directly mirroring the mobile suits from Gundam, yeah. There's a boss named Spyborg that wags its finger at you, just like the T-1000 in Terminator 2.
No way. I never noticed the finger wag.
Yeah. And it even quotes lines reminiscent of the M5 computer from Star Trek.
It's just a total pop culture melting pot. But I have to ask, did the N64 technology dictate the game's design? Or did this massive cinematic ambition of the designers force the technology to catch up?
It is entirely a symbiotic relationship, but I'd say ambition definitely led the charge here.
How so?
The hardware provided the canvas, the ability to render 3D environments, stream voice data, and calculate physics. But it was the design choice to use those tools for pacing that made it work.
Ah, pacing.
Right. The cinematic homages aren't just visual references, they dictate the gameplay loops. When you face that Independence Day-style saucer, the mechanics of the game actually adapt to mimic the tension of the movie's climax.
Because you have a time limit to destroy the core.
Exactly. The technology served the emotional beats they wanted to hit.
That makes perfect sense. They
Yeah.
built a universe that felt incredibly expansive because it drew from an expansive history of sci-fi.
Definitely.
But before we get into the actual war that we all played, I want to explore the ghost planets.
Oh, yes. The stuff that didn't make it.
The battlefields that were abandoned during development.
Yeah.
Because the cutting room floor for this game is absolutely fascinating.
It is a treasure trove for understanding their iterative design process, because there are entire game modes, mechanics, and planetary systems that were fully conceptualized,
Coded and everything.
fully coded, and then ultimately scrapped before release.
Let's talk about turret mode. We mentioned the game had the on-rails corridor mode and the open arena all-range mode,
Right.
but there was a third scroll type coded into the game. It was inspired by a 1991 arcade game called Starblade, which the developers apparently loved playing together.
Starblade was huge for them.
Yeah, and turret mode would have completely taken away the player's ability to fly the ship. It locked the vehicle on a predetermined path so the player could focus purely on aiming a reticle.
What's fascinating here is how turret mode reveals their desire to experiment with pacing and control. And honestly, why taking slight control away from an ace pilot character is a remarkably bold design choice.
Wait, why is that bold? Isn't taking away the flight stick in a flying game just, like, frustrating for the player?
It can be, if done poorly. But functionally, it forces a sense of extreme vulnerability and hyperfocus.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about standard gameplay. If you see an incoming missile, your instinct is to dodge, right? To use the R-Wing's maneuverability to survive.
Right, you do a barrel roll or boost out of the way.
But turret mode strips away your evasive capabilities. You can't dodge. Your only means of survival is offensive accuracy.
Oh, I see.
You must destroy the threat before it reaches you. It completely inverts the player's psychological approach to a threat.
That's actually really smart.
While they couldn't get it to fit perfectly into the 1997 release, that mechanic didn't just vanish into the ether. It paved the way for mechanics in later franchise entries.
Oh, where you find yourself riding on the wings of an allied ship or manning a stationary gun.
Exactly, focusing entirely on gunnery.
It makes you wonder how it would have played out narratively in this specific game. Like, what if the R-Wing's G-diffuser malfunctioned mid-battle?
That would be terrifying.
Right. Let's clarify what a G-diffuser is for a second. In the lore, it's the anti-gravity and inertial dampening technology that prevents the pilot from being turned into soup by extreme G-forces.
And it also powers the ship's hovering capabilities.
Yeah, so what if that failed and you had to hand control over to the ship's autopilot, ROB-64, while you desperately fended off fighters? It would have been a terrifying shift in the pacing.
And they actually built a level to test this.
They did.
Yes. There are references deep in the code to a level named Starblade Imitation. Based on early map data, this level would have sat right where Area 6 is now,
So right at the end of the game.
acting as the final defensive gauntlet before the villain's homeworld. It seems they debated whether the final push should be an aggressive, player-controlled flight assault or a desperate, on-rail shooting gallery.
That is so cool. And it wasn't just modes, it was entire planets. There was a water planet called Let A.I.
Ah, Calais.
It was described as a colony world, and it featured a boss called the Sabarin, which was literally a giant mackerel fish.
A giant space fish.
Yeah. It seems like it was designed specifically for the game's submarine vehicle, the Blue Marine.
Exactly. And again, look at how the remnants of these scrapped ideas mutate and survive in the final game's DNA.
Right.
The name Cattleya comes from an orchid genus, which is fitting for a beautiful ocean world. Ultimately, Cattleya was removed, but the conceptual need for a heavily defended colony level evolved into the Bolst Defense Outpost.
Oh, so the structure survived.
And the idea of fighting a giant, aquatic, submarine-like boss wasn't thrown away either. It was repurposed into the submarine boss you fight on the toxic planet Zonus.
See, nothing is ever truly wasted in game development. It just changes shape.
That's the truth of the industry.
There was also a scrapped level, simply known as Battleship, which would have taken the spot of Sector Y. It was an all-range mode fight against a massive Venomian flagship with floating debris and swarms of fighters.
And the battleship concept highlights their ambition to do large-scale fleet engagements early in the game.
Yeah, massive battles.
While that specific level was cut, the DNA of a massive capital ship fight is scattered throughout the final game, particularly in how you engage with enemy carriers and defense stations.
It really shows that they were constantly shuffling the pieces, trying to find the perfect rhythm for a galactic war.
They definitely were.
Okay, so with the game built, the 64-bit engine optimized, and the ghost planets left behind in the code, it's time to dive into the universe they actually delivered.
The lore.
Yeah, because you don't just drop the player into a cockpit without context. We need to talk about the genesis of the Lylat Wars. How does a peaceful, prosperous solar system descend into total, catastrophic war?
It begins, as many tragedies do, with a brilliant mind corrupted by isolation and ambition.
Dr. Andros.
Yes. The Lylat System is a small group of planets that enjoyed years of prosperity. The absolute center of this civilization is Corneria, the fourth planet.
Very Earth-like.
It's an idyllic world focused heavily on agriculture, high culture, and scientific advancement. And their leading scientific mind was a bioengineer named Dr. Andros.
Right. Andros was brilliant, but his research started to cross serious ethical lines.
Very serious lines.
He was developing hyperdimensional technology, space warps, and advanced bioweapons. But because Corneria was so unfathomably peaceful, there was no practical application for his work.
Nobody wanted his weapons.
The government basically told him, we don't need dimension warping torpedoes, we need better crop yields.
And that lack of recognition, combined with his own twisted morality, just drove him mad.
He couldn't handle it.
He viewed the peaceful nature of Corneria as a terminal weakness, an artificial barrier to pure scientific progress. He repeatedly ignored direct orders from the Commander-in-Chief, General Pepper, to cease his dangerous, volatile experiments.
And it culminated in a horrific act of domestic terrorism.
It did. Andros unleashed a secretly developed bioweapon directly onto Corneria City, killing an undisclosed number of innocent civilians and severely damaging the planet's infrastructure.
General Pepper finally steps in, charges Andros with first-class treason, and exiles him to a barren, remote wasteland planet called Venom.
Right.
And this is where I have to look at the geopolitical reality of this universe and shake my head. They sent their most dangerous, unhinged domestic terrorist to an entire planet by himself and just assumed he'd die.
Yeah, it's pretty naive.
No guards, no orbital blockade. That is monumentally incompetent.
It's the ultimate hubris of a pacifist society. They couldn't conceive of executing him, but they also lacked the military infrastructure to properly imprison him.
So they just dumped him.
So they chose exile, which was a catastrophic miscalculation. Because Andros didn't die, he thrived.
He finds a whole race of humanoid lizards on Venom.
Yes, he discovered an indigenous population and immediately militarized them, fueling them with a manufactured hatred for the elitist Cornerian government.
He just brainwashed them.
He experimented on himself, mutating his own body with biotechnology, and spent years building a massive, technologically advanced war machine right under the surface of the planet.
He crowned himself Emperor of Venom.
And began drawing the worst elements of the Lylat System mercenaries, pirates, warlords into his ranks.
Fast forward 5 years, General Pepper is sitting on Corneria, and he starts getting disturbing sensor readings from Venom. Bizarre biosigns. Massive energy spikes.
And he starts to panic.
Right. So what does this peaceful government do? They still don't send an army because they don't really have one. They hire a team of 3 private mercenaries. The original StarFox team.
James McLeod.
Yeah, James, his best friend Peppy Hare, and a pilot named Pigma Dengar. They fly to Venom to investigate.
And they walk directly into a trap. Andros was waiting for them. But he didn't defeat them with superior firepower or brilliant tactics.
No, he defeated them with base bribery.
Exactly. Pigma Dengar, lured by the promise of immense wealth and power within Andros's new empire, betrays his friends. He leads James and Peppy straight into Andros's clutches.
It's a devastating betrayal that sets up the entire emotional core of the game. James McLeod is captured, tortured, and presumed dead.
And Peppy barely escapes.
Peppy Hare barely manages to escape with his life, his ship heavily damaged, just so he can limp back to Corneria and tell James's son, Fox McLeod, what happened.
It establishes immediately that this isn't just a generic war story about saving the universe. It's a deeply personal revenge story.
Right.
Peppy becomes a surrogate father and mentor to young Fox, and for 2 agonizing years, they wait on Corneria, knowing that the threat on Venom is growing exponentially.
Until finally, Andros launches his invasion across the entire Lylat system, striking world after world with overwhelming force until only Corneria remains free.
And that's where the game starts.
And here is where I have to point out the incredible economic reality of this universe again. Because General Pepper, his back against the wall, his planetary defenses crumbling, calls up Fox McLeod.
Who is a teenager?
Fox is only 18 years old. He has formed a new StarFox team with Peppy, a hot-headed ace named Falco Lombardi, and a gifted mechanic named Slippy Toad.
A ragtag group.
But Fox hasn't just inherited his dad's legacy and his dad's cool aviator sunglasses. He has inherited a massive, crushing bank loan for their gigantic dreadnought mothership, the Great Fox.
That ship is not cheap.
They take the job to save the galaxy, sure, but as the game's manual specifically notes, they really need the cash to pay off their debt. They're not just saving the galaxy, they're trying to make rent.
It adds a fascinating layer of blue-collar grit to what is otherwise a sweeping, glamorous space opera.
It really does.
But if we look at the geopolitical failure of Corneria here, it is staggering. They built a society so devoted to peace that they completely neglected their own defense.
Completely.
When faced with an existential threat, they didn't have a capable standing military to investigate it. They relied on heavily indebted hired guns. And when those hired guns failed, they just waited 2 years for the invasion to arrive at their doorstep.
Corneria's idealism was almost its total undoing.
It really was.
So General Pepper makes the desperate call. The new StarFox team deploys. It's time to cover this war, deployment by deployment.
Let's get into the missions.
The campaign begins on Corneria itself. The beautiful, peaceful planet is in ruins. Buildings are toppled. The sky is choked with Phenomian fighters.
The first mission serves as a brilliant mechanical and narrative introduction. You are thrown right into the defense of a devastated city. You learn how to pilot the R-Wing.
Now, you mentioned the R-Wing's lasers earlier, but the genius of the ship's design is the barrel roll.
Ah, yes. Do a barrel roll.
It's literally a meme that has survived for decades. Peppy yells it at you. But functionally, what is it actually doing in the game's code?
Well, first, from an aviation standpoint, it's actually an aileron roll, not a barrel roll.
Fair enough.
But from a game design standpoint, it's a temporary invincibility frame tied to an electromagnetic deflection shield. When you double-tap the shoulder buttons, you aren't just moving out of the way. The game's code actually alters the collision hitbox of the R-Wing. It creates a temporary field that violently repels enemy laser fire.
So it bounces right off.
Exactly. It teaches the player immediately that defense in this game isn't just about avoiding damage, it's about actively countering it.
And Corneria also introduces the dynamic of your team. Slippy analyzes boss shields, Peppy gives tactical advice, and Falco covers your flank.
And this isn't just flavor text.
The game continuously tracks their positional data and health in the background. If you don't protect them, they take damage and have to retreat to the Great Fox for repairs, leaving you without their abilities for the next mission.
Which ties directly into the game's most famous feature, the branching paths. Corneria ends with the game's first major fork, which is dependent entirely on player skill and hidden code metrics.
Exactly. Let's break down how that actually works under the hood.
Sure.
If you just survive the level, if you just fly to the end and shoot what's in front of you, you fight a giant ape commander named Granga in a bipedal mech.
A pretty standard boss fight.
But if you manage to save Falco from being shot down early on, and you fly through these specific, seemingly random water arches in the ocean section of the level, you trigger an alternate boss fight against the attack carrier, which is a massive Venomian warship.
The game is constantly reading your actions. The water arches are a metric of your handling precision. Saving Falco is a metric of your situational awareness.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you pass both tests, the game can literally unlocks the gateway to a harder, more aggressive narrative trajectory. Taking the harder path didn't just give you a different level, it advanced the story along a more high-stakes timeline.
So Andross's initial assault on Corneria is repelled. Let's look at the first fork. If you took the normal route from Corneria, if you fought Gronga, you end up in Meteo.
The asteroid field?
Yeah, this massive asteroid field on the outskirts of the system. Venom is using it as a natural ambush point. You are dodging massive rocks, shooting them into dust, and then you discover that Venom is using hyperdimensional space warps to jump their fleets around.
You fly through the psychedelic warp tunnel.
And you end up fighting the Meteo Crusher, a giant ship designed to pulverize asteroids.
It's a classic obstacle course level, but conversely, if you took the hard route from Corneria by destroying the attack carrier, you warp straight into Sector Y.
Oh man, Sector Y.
And this is a completely different experience. This is a designated open space combat zone, and the Cornerian battle fleets are engaged in a desperate, losing melee against the Venomian armada.
The scale of Sector Y is stunning. You drop out of hyperspace right into the middle of a war zone. The Venomian army has deployed these Shogun troopers.
Those massive humanoid mechs.
Yeah, they launch directly out of the bays of their Grozan-class carrier ships. They have beam rifles and shields. It feels so overwhelming.
You are weaving between allied and enemy capital ships trying to take down these mechs before they shred the Cornerian cruisers.
It establishes immediately how powerful Andross's war machine is right out of the gate. You end up fighting the Saruzin, a flagship that launches a unique, highly agile, white-colored mech commander.
Whether you navigate the natural hazards of Meteo or the full-scale military engagement of Sector Y, you are successfully pushing back the initial invasion force.
Right.
But Andross isn't just relying on brute force. He shifts to psychological warfare and resource starvation, which forces the StarFox team into much more hostile, specialized territory.
Which brings us to the mid-rim conflicts. Depending on your path, you could end up on Ficina, Catina, or Aquas. Let's start with Ficina.
The frozen planet.
Yeah, it's this icy defense post. You arrive, and the base is completely quiet, just a scattered few fighters. But your autopilot, ROB-64, scans the facility and realizes there is a massive bomb planted inside, set to detonate and wipe out the entire installation.
Ficina introduces a ticking clock mechanic. It fundamentally changes the player's psychology from survive and advance to prioritize speed and efficiency.
You have a literal timer on the screen.
But more importantly, Ficina serves as the narrative introduction to Starwolf.
Yes. You are flying around trying to figure out how to defuse this bomb, and suddenly 4 sleek, advanced Wolfen fighters drop out of the sky.
It's Wolf O'Donnell, the cold-blooded Leon Powalski, Andross's nephew, Andrew Oikani, and the traitor himself, Pigma Dengar.
This is the first time Fox comes face-to-face with the man who betrayed his father. The tension is incredible. You have to dogfight this elite squad in all-range mode while the bomb timer ticks down in the background.
And let's talk about the AI design here. How does the N64 handle enemy pilots that act like the player?
Oh, that's a good question.
The developers use predictive tracking. Most enemies in the game fly on predetermined splines and visible tracks in the sky. But Starwolf's AI actively calculates your trajectory and speed, attempting to maneuver behind you.
So they're actually hunting you.
It elevates the combat from simply shooting down mindless drones to engaging in a high-speed duel with computational equals.
And if we look at the other mid-rim missions, the variety is just astounding. Take Catina, for instance.
Catina is the frontline base, and it represents the absolute limit of what the N64 hardware could render on screen at one time without crashing.
It is absolute chaos.
Yeah.
It's a massive planetary invasion. You reunite with Bill Gray, an old friend of Fox, who commands the Cornerian Husky and Bulldog squadrons.
The sky is so incredibly thick with fighters.
The Venomian ships actually paint themselves to look like Cornerian fighters to cause friendly fire. You have to constantly check your radar to distinguish friend from foe.
It perfectly captures the fog of war. You are desperately trying to protect Bill's squadrons while managing your own survival.
And it culminates in the arrival of the Sorcerer.
That colossal mothership we mentioned earlier that eclipses the sun and begins charging a weapon capable of wiping out the entire base.
The pacing requires you to clear waves of fighters, just to expose the saucer's core for brief windows of time.
Think about the versatility here. You go from defusing a bomb with a rival squad breathing down your neck on an ice planet using predictive AI tracking to a massive, chaotic planetary invasion with sprite rendering pushed to the breaking point. And then there's the third mid-rim option, Aquas.
Aquas is an ocean planet that has been completely polluted by venom. Fox can't use the R-Wing here. He has to deploy the Blue Marine, an experimental submarine Slippy built.
It's a deep-sea ecological cleanup mission.
You are firing torpedoes in the murky depths to hunt down the Bakun, a giant, grotesque bioweapon that is vomiting pollution into the water.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these mid-rim levels perfectly reflect Andross's grand strategy.
What do you mean?
He wasn't just marching an army forward in a straight line, he was executing a multifaceted campaign of terror. On Katina and Ficina, he is trying to annihilate or steal Cornerian military infrastructure.
It makes sense.
But on Aquas, we see a darker side of his scientific background. He is actively corrupting the environment itself using pollution and bioengineering to make the planet uninhabitable for its native citizens.
He is turning nature itself into a weapon. But pushing past that mid-rim defensive line triggers a completely different response from Andross.
He stops sending conventional fleets.
Right, and starts relying on the most extreme hostile environments of the Lylat system itself to do his dirty work. The StarFox team enters what we can only call the danger zones.
These missions, Sector X, Solar, and Zones, are characterized by sabotage, extreme environmental hazards, and raw survival against overwhelming odds.
Let's look at Sector X. Cornerian spies found a secret Venomian research base built into a space debris field. You fly in, and the base is already destroyed.
Not by Corneria, but by Venom's own creation.
Right. They built an artificial intelligence called Spyborg to manage the base, and it completely malfunctioned, turned on its creators, and slaughtered the garrison.
You have to navigate through the ruined, automated base defenses just to put this rampant AI out of its misery.
And the fight has massive narrative consequences, driven by a specific code trigger. Because right at the end of the fight, if you don't destroy Spyborg fast enough, he violently swats Slippy's R-Wing right out of the sky.
That moment fundamentally alters the mission state. Slippy is sent spiraling down toward the nearby planet Titania. The objective instantly shifts from an offensive push against Andross to a desperate rescue mission.
It reinforces the vulnerability of the team.
You can actually prevent it if you deal enough damage quickly, but for most players, losing their mechanic mid-battle was a shocking disruption.
Then you have Solar, which is literally just a star. Venom is using the surface of the sun for bioweapon testing. You have to fly incredibly close to the magma surface.
And the heat is so intense that your R-Wing's armor is constantly melting away. Your health bar is just draining the entire level.
Let's talk about the psychology of that constantly ticking down health bar. In most games, taking damage is a punishment for a mistake.
Right, you got hit.
On Solar, taking damage is the default state of existence. It completely alters your resource management.
Exactly. You have to shoot rocks just to find silver rings to repair your ship mid-flight. You aren't just fighting enemies, you are fighting the environment.
And waiting for you is Vulcane, a massive demonic creature made of lava that hurls molten boulders at you.
Andross's willingness to breed nightmares in the core of a star speaks volumes about his madness. He is creating life forms that thrive in environments where Cornerian forces cannot even survive.
And the third danger zone is Zonus. This used to be a resort planet, a beautiful ocean world, but Andross turned it into a toxic, radioactive wasteland. The water is poison.
Now, this level requires actual stealth. Think about stealth mechanics in 1997. Metal Gear Solid hadn't come out yet.
Yet true. Venom has set up a massive early warning network of radar buoys with searchlights. If you get caught in the lights, they alert the fleet, and your path is altered.
You have to systematically destroy the buoys to sneak through.
It relied on simple line-of-sight checks and radar cones built into the 3D engine, but it was incredibly effective.
Zonus also introduces another layer of factional politics with the arrival of Kat Monroe.
The fiercely independent pilot with ties to Falco. She arrives unprompted to help you destroy the infrastructure. It shows that the resistance against Andross isn't just the official military, it's also independent operators fighting for their homes.
You sneak through the toxic fog, dealing with these radar cones, and fight the Sarah Marine, a giant polluting submarine. It's a brutal fight.
So air superiority is established, the mid-rim and the danger zones are cleared, but Andross still has massive supply chains feeding his war machine.
Now the team has to tackle grounded threats and deep ambushes to secure those lines.
We are talking about Titania, Macbeth, and Sector Z.
This phase of the campaign is defined by specialized vehicular combat and highly stressful defensive escort missions. The StarFox team has to adapt to non-standard combat scenarios.
Which brings us back to Slippy, who crash-landed on Titania after getting swatted by Spyborg. It's a harsh, unforgiving desert planet with terrible sandstorms.
Fox cannot fly the R-Wing low enough to find him safely, so he deploys the Landmaster tank.
And the physics of the Landmaster are entirely different from the R-Wing. You are now dealing with gravity, terrain friction, and hover mechanics.
You are driving through ancient ruins and Venomian automated defenses. And waiting at the end is Gorus, a mutant feral beast with a skeletal xenomorph-like structure that Andros has cybernetically enhanced.
It's literally holding Slippy's ship hostage in its claws. You have to use the Landmaster's hover jets to float over shockwaves and its rolling mechanics to dodge attacks while systematically shooting off its limbs.
Titania highlights Fox's loyalty as a commander. General Pepper actively questions the strategic value of delaying the push to Venom just to save one pilot, but Fox refuses to leave a man behind.
It's a stark contrast to Andros, who views his soldiers as entirely disposable.
Then you have Macbeth, which is arguably one of the most brilliant levels in the game. It's Venom's primary industrial supply base.
You are back in the Landmaster, but this time you are chasing down a massive supply train called the Macbeth.
The design of Macbeth is a logic puzzle seamlessly integrated into a high-speed action sequence. You aren't just shooting the train until it explodes, you are managing the environment around the train.
Exactly. You are shooting physical track switches as you drive alongside the train, trying to manually divert the tracks. It requires incredible velocity management.
You have to speed up to reach a switch, brake to align your shot, and boost to catch up again.
If you hit all 8 switches correctly, you send the entire train careening off its path, crashing directly into the main supply depot in a massive, glorious explosion.
You single-handedly cripple Venom's industrial output.
But while Fox is on the ground causing havoc, the Great Fox mothership is left vulnerable in orbit. Which brings us to Sector Z.
Sector Z is a masterclass in tension, specifically regarding the design of escort missions.
Think about the last time you played an escort mission in a modern game. Usually you're pulling your hair out because the AI is terrible.
The person you are protecting runs right into gunfire or gets stuck on a wall.
But what's fascinating here is how the developers solved that frustration for you back in 1997. The Great Fox is completely stationary. The threat is not the AI acting dumb.
The threat is incredibly clear, unstoppable physics. Venom realizes they can't beat the fighters, so they target the mobile base.
They launch 6 massive copperhead missiles, escorted by fighters, aimed squarely at the Great Fox.
You are watching the distance markers on these missiles count down on your screen. You have to prioritize targets.
You have to use your boost and brake to stay behind the missiles, managing your speed to match their fixed trajectories, all while Venom fighters are actively trying to shoot you down.
It's a puzzle of prioritization and Z-axis awareness.
You feel like a true ace pilot, juggling a dozen threats at once to save your home. It is the final test of your situational awareness before the climax of the war.
Because once Sector Z, Macbeth, or Titania are cleared, only one defensive ring remains. You are knocking on Venom's door.
But the path you take to breach that final gateway determines the very nature of the war's conclusion.
The Lylat System has 2 distinct front doors to Venom. You have Bols, which is the normal route, and Area 6, which is the true route.
And the game heavily telegraphs the tactical difference here in how it rewards the player.
Bols is a defense outpost. It's heavily fortified, but you are essentially sneaking through a back door. You fly in, and there is this massive energy shield protecting the core.
You have to fly around the perimeter, destroying 6 specific generator pylons to drop the shield.
And Bols forces a reckoning with your past, because Starwolf arrives for a rematch. If you didn't defeat them on Fichina, they are here to stop you from dropping those shields.
It's a chaotic, swirling dogfight around a massive installation, utilizing all the skills you've learned.
But if you played perfectly, if you triggered the hidden metrics and took the hard routes all the way through, you don't sneak into Bols.
You fly straight into Area 6, and Area 6 is kicking the front door off its hinges. It is an all-out, head-on assault through a massive Venomian armada and a dense space minefield.
It is visually overwhelming. Hundreds of ships, laser fire filling the screen. You are just plowing through their lines.
The game explicitly rewards the player for taking this harder, more aggressive route. The enemy density is highest here.
The N64 is pushing more polygons in Area 6 than almost anywhere else in the game, meaning your potential for a high score is maximized.
You fight through the fleet to confront the Gorgon, a massive defense station with a devastating energy weapon. Destroying it shatters the backbone of the Venomian military.
You clear Bolse or you shatter Area 6, and finally you are descending into the toxic atmosphere of Venom, the birthplace of the madness.
The sky is dark, the terrain is jagged. You have finally cornered Dr. Andros.
And here, the branching narrative pays off with two entirely different conclusions to the campaign, entirely dependent on how you breach the atmosphere.
If you arrive via the Bolt's back door, you experience the normal ending. You fight your way through an ancient temple, battling a living stone monolith called Golomek, before dropping into Andros's inner sanctum.
You find Andros, and he looks like a giant floating eight-head. You are dodging his massive hands, trying to line up shots on the hitboxes of his eyes.
And when you finally do enough damage, his outer face blasts away to reveal a robotic cybernetic skull. You destroy the robot, you fly out of the exploding tunnels, and you escape.
But as Fox flies away, you hear Andros's laughter echoing through space. You didn't kill him. You killed a mechanical decoy.
The war is over, but the threat remains.
It is a sobering conclusion. A victory, yes, but a hollow one. However, if you possess the skill to breach Area 6, you earn the true ending.
The true ending is an absolute gauntlet. You drop into Venom, and immediately Starwolf is waiting for you. But they aren't in their old ships.
Andros has equipped them with the Wolf in the Second. They are faster, they have better shields, and their AI tracking is incredibly lethal.
You have to win a pure, unadulterated dogfight against the best pilots in the galaxy.
Once Starwolf is defeated, Fox orders his team to stay behind. He descends into the subterranean tunnels entirely alone.
It is a moment of deep isolation and resolve. He finally faces the true Andros.
And the true Andros is pure, unfiltered body horror. You blow off his ape face, and underneath, it isn't a robot.
It is a massive floating biological brain with two floating eyes attached by severed nerve cords. It is grotesque.
It shows exactly what his twisted bioengineering research led to. He literally stripped away his own humanity, discarded his own body to become a weapon.
Fox destroys the brain, ending the tyrant's life once and for all. But in his final moment of spite, Andros triggers a massive self-destruct mechanism, intending to bury Fox alive in the collapsing tunnels of Venom.
Fox turns his R-ring around, the flames are licking at his hull, the tunnels are collapsing, and he is lost. He doesn't know the way out.
And then a ship appears in front of him, a single R-wing glowing slightly, and a voice comes over the radio. Never give up. Trust your instincts.
It's James McCloud, his father.
It is an incredibly powerful narrative payoff. And what makes it so enduring is that the game leaves it completely ambiguous.
Is it a hallucination brought on by extreme stress, G-forces, and oxygen deprivation? Is it a true supernatural intervention by a ghost, or did James miraculously survive in the depths of Venom all these years?
Regardless of what he is, James guides Fox through the labyrinth of explosions, taking the perfect racing lines to lead him back to the surface before vanishing completely into the sky.
Fox bursts out of the atmosphere, reunites with his team, and they fly home.
The aftermath is a massive victory parade on Corneria. The dog soldiers are saluting them. The sky is clear. General Pepper stands on a podium and officially offers the StarFox team a permanent spot in the Cornerian army.
He wants to legitimize them, make them the official defenders of the system.
And Fox famously declines. He simply says, "We prefer doing things our own way," and the team walks away, heading back to the Great Fox for their next mercenary contract.
They walk away, and then the game hits you with the final punchline. The credits roll, and General Pepper is sitting at his desk. A piece of paper prints out.
It is the invoice for their mercenary work. General Pepper receives the literal bill for saving the galaxy.
And the cost is staggering, calculated mathematically based on the player's performance, specifically the number of enemies destroyed during the campaign.
We actually ran the incredible inflation math on this, because the game came out in 1997, and we're sitting here in 2026. A base bill for a decent run is around $70,000.
In 2026 money, General Pepper is paying roughly $142,523 for an afternoon's work.
But if you played flawlessly, if you took every hard route, defended every base, pushed the polygon count to the limit, and racked up the maximum possible score of around 3,000 hits, the bill caps out at $192,000.
Adjusted for 2026 inflation, Fox hands the government an invoice for a staggering $390,920.37.
General Pepper just looks at it and screams, "What?"
It is a humorous ending, but it brilliantly reinforces the blue-collar, working-class nature of the team we discussed earlier. They saved the galaxy, they avenged a father, but they still have a massive dreadnought loan to pay off.
When you look back at the journey from the ruined streets of Corneria to the exploding core of Venom, you see a masterclass in pacing. It scales perfectly from local defense to specialized tactical strikes to a galactic liberation.
Every planet feels distinct. Every hazard forces you to adapt your psychology, and every choice you make alters the narrative tone.
It wasn't just a technical marvel that gave us force feedback and real-time voice acting. It was a deeply layered military campaign that genuinely respected the player's intelligence and skill, wrapped in incredibly memorable lore.
It established a universe that felt lived in, populated by characters whose relationships drove the action forward.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought. Because we know what happens after the credits roll, we know that the Cornerian army is left completely depleted.
General Pepper has to rely on his weakened forces to hunt down remaining Venomian war criminals. Starwolf isn't dead, they retreat and take over the Sargasso space zone.
Andross's nephew, Andrew Oikani, eventually rises to power to fill the vacuum left by his uncle.
It raises a vital question about the geopolitical structure of this universe. Corneria refused to build a capable standing army. They chose instead to rely entirely on heavily indebted independent mercenaries.
When those mercenaries were offered a chance to integrate and lead a formal defense force, they refused, citing a desire for independence.
Was that refusal exactly why the Lylat system plunged right back into chaos? By walking away, did Fox McCloud inadvertently doom the galaxy to an endless cycle of sequels and wars?
It's something to chew on the next time you hear that R-Wing engine fire up. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. We encourage you to look back at your old games with fresh eyes, feel that phantom rumble in your hands, and maybe, just maybe, boot up the 2026 Switch 2 remake to see if you still have what